Well, good morning. It is good to be here with you. If you have your Bibles, you can turn to the book of Matthew, chapter 22, is where we'll be teaching out of today. 34 will be the verse, and I am excited to be here. I am sorry. I've had a few people ask. My wife wasn't able to come, and grave disappointment when people saw that. And some of you had looked her up on Facebook and had seen us when you heard we were coming, and the question I often then get is, no offense, Aaron, but how did you get her? And the answer is really pretty obvious and clear. My mom prayed really hard. And then the next question becomes, well, then how did she get stuck with you? And the answer, again, is obvious. Apparently someone in her family wasn't living right. And so not enough prayer on one side, too much on the other. But hopefully if I'm being very presumptuous here, if I ever get to come back, I'll get to bring her with me. But it is good to be here with you. I'm excited. I love Campmeeting. Was formed through Campmeeting preaching and praying and worship and times like this in the summer in Ohio. And so I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here with these heroes of the faith. And so this is the passage we're going to be talking about today. It says, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All of the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." So as you read through the book of Matthew, there's sort of a fight happening consistently. There's these battles between Jesus and the sort of religious rulers, the educated, the elevated ones, if you will. And they just sort of keep coming up to Jesus to try to snare him, to give him some sort of trick, some sort of trap. And they ask him sort of these open-ended questions so that hopefully he will incriminate himself towards them. And they start to ask him whether they should pay taxes or what should they do with coins. And the Sadducees come back and they ask about the resurrection and who's married to who. And then eventually the Pharisees come back and they bring him this. And this was sort of a question that was debated within that particular religious culture at the time. What is the most important thing we can do? Now, most of the rabbis would say that all of the law was equal, but they love to just sit around and sort of debate this thing. So they come to Jesus and say, "Listen, we want to know. What's the greatest thing we can do? What is the thing that we can pour our lives into?" I think if we ask this question today, one of the questions that I get asked as a pastor often is, why am I here? What is my responsibility? What is my purpose here? What is the thing that I should get my value from? And Jesus' response is twofold. He starts by saying, if you want to know why you're here, if you want to fill your life with purpose, if you want to leave a legacy that lasts longer than simply your time here on earth, then he says, I want you to love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, with all of your strength, with your entirety of being. I want you to respond to the love of God in kind. Because love changes things. Maybe the first time I fully realized this, I was a counselor at a junior high camp in Ohio. And if you've never done junior high camp meeting type stuff, I don't, have you really lived? There's something special about people that dedicate their lives to hang out with a group of individuals who just think differently and act differently and live differently. And so we got these junior high boys into our dorm. And it was my first year as a counselor, and I got one request, and it was over and over and over again by their mothers. Would you please make sure they shower? And I had forgotten junior high. I think it was so traumatic, I had blocked it from my life. And so the first day came, I said, okay, guys, it's time to take showers. And we kind of left and came back, and then none of them looked wet. And nothing really had changed. And about 4 days in, we knew that nothing had changed because a certain aroma had filled the boys' dormitory. And then the next day, I walk in and I hear a sound that I had not heard in a whole week. It was running water. And I was confused, so I open the door, I walk into the bathroom, and there's this row of boys, and they're combing their hair, and steam had filled up. One of them was shaving his entire hair of beard, you know. And I looked and I said, what's going on? And as I walk in, there was a new aroma. Now it was not an aroma of stench of junior high boy. No, it was Axe body spray. The whole can. And I looked at one of them and I said, what is going on? Like, I've been trying, I have begged you. I have threatened you. Some of you, I just thought about throwing in with your, what has happened? And one of them looks at me and he says, Aaron, we met a girl. Now, I didn't think that was the time to discuss how many girls had been met and how many of them had met them and what the odds were, whether they were in their favor or not. I was just thrilled that something had happened in their lives to change the way they were operating in our particular setting, right? Why? Because love changes us. Love shapes us. It molds us. And when we experience the love of God the way He has designed us to, the fulfilling and satisfying love of God, it moves us in a different way. And what else can we do in response to that but love Him back? Now, what we call this is worship. Right? And when we think of worship, a lot of times we think of what just happened here with the music and the singing. Maybe we think about a Wednesday night type thing or Thursday, you know, if you were really holy, you go to that one. Sunday night, possibly. But when we're talking about worship, what we're talking about here is not simply a moment, not simply a service, not simply singing songs, but a response of our life to God. At Crosspoint, we call this the elevation portion, that our jobs, that our purpose, part of what we were created to do is to love God in such a way that we respond to Him with our lives. The act of worship is not simply singing a song or playing something. The act of worship is to ascribe the highest value to something in our life and then ordering our life around it. And when we go by that definition, what we realize is we all worship something. We all have things that we ascribe the highest value to. We all have things that we find our value in. And here's the problem. So many of the things that we think are valuable, so much of the stuff that we think our value is finding, that we think our purpose is written around, was never meant to hold the weight of your worship. And it will crumble. And when it crumbles, if your life was wrapped around it, so too will your life. This moment came for me when I had a distinct revelation from God. See, I love to pastor. I don't think there's anything more exciting than pastoring people. I love it. I love to proclaim the gospel. I count myself blessed anytime I get to stand behind a podium and just proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ. I love it. It is the moment that I feel most close to Him. You may remember the movie Chariots of Fire, where the man says, God made me fast, and I feel His pleasure when I run. I say, God made me talk, and I feel His pleasure when I get to proclaim His gospel. But what I found after a few years of ministry is what I had tied my value to was improper. I loved ministry more than I loved Jesus. It was a good thing. If you're in ministry today, you should love it. Whatever your vocation is here today, you should love it. I hope it brings you pleasure and you feel God's pleasure when you do one of these things that you have been created to do. When your passion, your giftedness comes together and you get to do the thing that you feel like you were created to do. But here's the problem. When we love it more than we love God, we fall in love with the gift more than we're in love with the giver. And we start to worship the gift. I have a daughter, Harper. She's beautiful and precious and wonderful. She looks, acts, and talks like her mother, thank God. And I can remember pretty early on, she would tell her mom, Mama, and all kinds of other things of admiration. And I was just waiting for the time that my first would come. And I was getting ready to put her in the car seat in the back of our car, open up, and she looks at me and our eyes connect. And I could tell this was the moment. And she looks at me in the eyes and she goes, I love. I was like, yeah, baby, come on. Yeah. Like I didn't want to prompt her, but I knew what was coming, you know? Dad, you know, and she goes, I love. And I was like, I'm tearing up, man. I'm going to get the I love you first. And there's nothing else I've had. You know, she is her mother's mini-me through and through, but this is going to be my moment. And I look at her and I say, okay, come on, Harps, tell me. And she goes, I love the Baba. And I was like, well, I'm the giver of the Baba. Get in the car. You know, I was like, this is ridiculous. What had happened? She had fallen in love with the gift more than the provider of the gift. And I think too many of us, if we are not careful, have things in our life that we have been drawn to. They may be good things. There's nothing wrong with them. It's that we have put our value and our hope and our faith and our trust. We have put our significance and our security in something that was never meant to carry the weight of that. The object of our worship, that which we ascribe the highest value to, and then order our lives around it, can be none other than our Creator, our Sustainer, our Redeemer, our Sanctifier, the one that knows everything about us and loves us anyway, a God who is love and expects us to respond in kind. We can talk about God in a lot of ways. We have all kinds of descriptions of God. Books upon books upon books and sermons upon sermons have been written about these attributes of God. And they're all good and they're all wonderful as long as they are put in their proper place. Because if you strip everything away, let's say for a moment there was no creation. There is no heaven, there is no hell, there are no angels, there are no demons. Earth does not exist. It is just God in his eternal now. We say that God is sovereign, which is true, but sovereign is a relational thing, right? He's got to be sovereign over something. If there's no creation, then you just have this Trinitarian God existing. They're not sovereign over each other. They don't need to be. Talk about the wrath of God, which is an attribute, it's something that we see, and it's an aspect of who he is, but if there's nothing to be wrathful at, that attribute doesn't need to be exposed. But at his core, at his essence, at the beginning of time, before creation, God, 3 in 1 in community, can love. He lives in love. He is in community of love, and he creates out of love. I think there are too many theological perspectives that ask the question, well, how is it that a wrathful God can show his love? When I think the Wesleyan perspective becomes, how is it then that is a loving God show his wrath? How does a loving God show his justice? How does a loving God show his sovereignty? And then how does a loving God interact with his creation in a way that allows them, that draws them into finding their security and their significance in him and him alone? And that we don't love the gifts more than we love the giver. That as pastors, we don't fall in love with ministry more than we fall in love with the man. In 2018, I heard my name from the living room from my wife. And I heard it as I'd only heard it one other time before, and I knew it was fear. And as I walk in, she's laying down on the couch and she's holding herself like this, and she says, "Aaron, I felt something. We need to call the doctor." And doctor visit after doctor visit after doctor visit brings us to the place that at that time she's diagnosed with stage 3B breast cancer. A 6-centimeter tumor that they were at that time fairly sure had spread. And she got scan after scan after scan, and every day in my life got a little darker, got a little darker, got a little darker. And I can remember finally at one point, I'm sitting on the floor, and I have my phone in my hand. And she walks in and she says, are you okay? And yeah, I'm fine. And she says, "You're looking at your phone." And if you know me, that's not an odd thing. I look at my phone a lot. And I said, "I know." She said, "Honey, it's off." And I looked up at her and I said, I can't do this. And we prayed together and cried, and she seemed great. And we walked into church the next morning for her to be, 2 mornings later, for her to be anointed. And I said, "God, you can do better than this. I've seen it. What is going on? How am I supposed to function in this?" And I've never heard a voice of God. I've always wanted to. I'm guessing he sounds something like James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman. If I get to heaven and God doesn't sound like one of those two, I'll realize that I didn't make it. But I got a strong sense from him, and this is what he said. "Do you believe that I love your wife more than you do?" And I have to confess, at the moment, I wasn't sure I could answer that truthfully. But I'm a pastor, so I said, yes, of course, I believe that. And said, then will you just trust that I'm love? And he, and then he turned my attention to my 3-year-old baby girl. And he said, "Do you believe that I love her more than you do?" Sure. Then trust that I am love. I think the core of a lot of our fear, a lot of our anxiety and anxiousness, a lot of our performance, a lot of our putting our hopes and dreams and things that were never created to carry the weight of our worship is a lack of understanding of the love of God that he has for his creation. I think too often in our tribe, we sometimes feel the need to earn or prove that we are loved by God. If I can just do the right thing the right way for the right reasons, if I can just hit the right metrics at my church, if I can just get the promotion to prove to the world that Christians can be successful, if I can just in some way show that I am loved, and what God is saying is it's already there. Trust that I am love and elevate me to my proper place. And what I found is that when we properly worship and elevate God, he draws us to him. There is something about proper worship, of ascribing the highest value of our lives to God and then ordering our life around that draws us into his holiness. That we don't have to pursue it. We don't have to run for it. We don't have to strive for it. It is a drawing from him that says, I want to put you in your proper place. And when we elevate him properly, we are drawn into that sphere of influence in a way that we love him with our entirety of being. And then he says, and the second is like it. God almost always comes in surround sound, right? It's always these sort of tension of the lion and the lamb, fully God, fully man. The first shall be last. You want to live, you got to die. He says, I love you, and if you love me, you'll love the things that I love. When I got married, life changed. There are things I used to do that I don't do anymore. There are things that I never thought I would do. I didn't know until I got married how important Hallmark Christmas movies would be in my life. I didn't know. I didn't even know they existed. I'd never seen one. And now I've seen hundreds and felt like I've just seen one. I hear they're coming out with a new plot this year. We'll see. I'm a student of my wife. When we go to dinner, I know what she's going to order. I know if her order comes wrong, what things I need to take off of her plate. I know that she's not going to order fries and I need to order 2 sets because she's going to eat half of them. There were some looks there. Why? Because I love my wife. I want to love the things she loves. I'm a student of my wife, not so that you can come to me and I can say, hey, let me tell you what color her eyes are and what color her hair is. While those are all fine and good, if that does not shape my heart in a way that it changes the way I am with her and around her because of her, then it isn't love. And what God says is, I love you. I am love. It is at the core of my triune, tri-holy God. We dance together in love. We create out of love. We are the only thing that is worthy of your worship, the only entity that can handle the weight of the significance and security and the value and the legacy that you're trying to leave. And when you love God because he loves you, there is always a natural outflow. When you love me, you'll love what I love. It's not success. It's not your job. It's not even your marriage. It's not your ministry. He says you'll love your neighbor. Which, of course, we love to ask the next question, the intuitive question, the question that was asked at one point. Well, God, who is my neighbor? The one that looks like me, the one that thinks like me, the one that acts like me, the one that believes like me, the one that talks like me, the one that knows how to say y'all properly. No. It's the one that you're in proximity with. The one that may not look like you, that may not talk like you, that may have voted differently than you, that may be in a different socioeconomic status, that may be a different race, a different creed. And he says, but they are my creation. And I love them. And our significance should not be found in the numbers. Our significance should not be found in the retirement. Our value and our significance is found in doing what God has created us, designed us to do. That is to elevate him and to embody our faith in the world. And when we talk about holiness, when we talk about this life change, this radical shift orientation of life where we don't just love the gifts anymore, but we love the giver more, where we don't find our significance in the ministry, but in the man, when our value is not tied to our performance or the things that we have done, but our value is tied to the fact that we are a soul, a child created by God. Galatians says you are his masterpiece. That he created you with a purpose and a plan and a grand design, a beautiful design built into the DNA and fabric of your life is this desire to know something greater than yourself, to know that you're not here alone, to know that this isn't all that there is, but there is something larger going on that is worthy of our worship. And we worship him, not just in song, although that's important, not just in word, although that's important, but with our lives, a reflection of his love to a world that needs it now more than ever. I'm going to ask the team to come up. We're going to close out here in a moment. And as they do, I would ask you to stand, if you would, with me. Here in a moment, I'm going to pray over us as a congregation, and then we're going to sing a few verses. And what I'm going to ask you to do in this moment, if you would bow your heads and close your eyes and just start preparing your heart for this moment. I think one of the questions that's being asked of us this week, at least for me, what am I worshiping? What is it that I find my value in? Where do I find my significance? What's the thing that if I fail at it or if it goes away, if I start coughing up blood tomorrow and I can't preach anymore, does that stop me from loving God? Am I more in love with the gifts than I am the giver? Or am I wholly and totally wrapped up in him? Have I gained the whole world and lost everything important? Or am I doing what I've been created to do? Which is to worship God. To accept his love that makes all of the rest of the success look meager. To accept a relationship that is more satisfying and more fulfilling than anything that I can make up on my own. And to reflect that love into a world that needs true and holy love. Lord, empower us to seek out you. We have this natural bend towards selfishness, this natural bend towards self-preservation, towards finding our significance, our value, our purpose in places we were never meant to. And Lord, some of us here have experienced the crash that comes with that. We know what it's like when the job goes away. We know what it's like when the marriage fails. We know what it's like when the ministry feels like it's drying up. We know what it's like when we put significance in a place that could not hold the weight, and when it fell, our lives fell with it. Some of us have experienced that before, God. There are some of us that are in it today. And you are calling to us to find a better way. To love you. Because you love us. And to love others. Because that's what you love. Would you help us seek you out this morning? Lord, even if it's just a seeking of saying, whatever you ask for this week, God, is yours. Wherever you call me, God, is yours. Because I trust your love. And God, if I don't yet trust your love, I want to. Would you help me, empower me to be able to do that today? If that's the cry of your heart this morning, would you just come tell him as we sing?
Number 88. I want to be like Jesus, number 88. You come as we sing. I have one deep, supreme